Hello, this is going to be a very simple guide on how to set up GameCube and Wii emulation on the AYN Thor. So just a caveat to start with, whilst you can emulate a Wiimote, I've not actually tried it myself, so that could be something you can have as a fun experiment. But first things first, if you've not already seen my other video about the initial setup for the AYN Thor, where we downloaded Obtainium and we installed the RJNY emulation pack, then I thoroughly recommend checking it out just so we can start from the same page. First things first, you can go into Obtainium. I've already done this, but just to show you, we're going to download the Dolphin emulator. If you've done any PC emulation over the past 10 or so years, Dolphin might be a name that's familiar to you. It's one of the best emulators out there. It has such a great community behind it. It runs brilliantly. It's one of my favorites. So we'll swipe up. So I've already downloaded Dolphin emulator, so we're going to boot it up. So it's split both the GameCube and Wii into different tabs. There's also the folder mode, which gives you a good overview. So we're going to add our GameCube games first. So we'll go into our ROMs folder. Again, I have hundreds of folders. I believe it's GC is the emulation station code, yeah. So GC, some front ends set up a folder called GameCube. I don't know why it's not GameCube and emulation station. Again, I didn't build it. So we're going to use that folder. Then whilst we're here, I'm going to also add the Wii, just so we save ourselves a little bit of time. So there we go. So Wii and allow. So I've only got a couple of Wii games. I tend to play more of the classic GameCube ones. And then if we go to the folder, folder's blank. We'll just stick with the GameCube and Wii for now. So let's go to settings. So first we'll look at config. So in general, most of these you can leave as they are. So I want to enable change discs automatically. There aren't many 2-disc GameCube games, but if you're a Metal Gear Solid fan, as I am, and you want to play Twin Snakes, that's a must. It will just automatically change the disc at the relevant point in the game rather than you having to manually go through and enable it that way. For interface, I'm going to leave playtime tracking is always good to have. App themes is fine. I'm going to apply the black backgrounds and take full advantage of the gorgeous OLED screen. Audio, we can just leave as is. Paths, this is just to do with if you use custom textures or if you want to so if you have, again, similar to the Switch emulation, if you have games within subfolders, then you can enable that there as well. So the way this is formatted is the GameCube and Wii are in separate settings files, so we can just go through. Skip main menu, I just leave that as is. So the way that save files work for the GameCube is it defaults to a GCI folder. So this is how I prefer to have things set up. So rather, it's like a simulated memory card, which basically saves all your data into one folder. Makes it loads easier to manage rather than having a kind of dummy memory card. And it also means that you can have infinitely more room. And then for Wii, I'm going to enable widescreen, enable the PAL 60 mode, screensaver's fine. You can enable the Wii Connect 24, which is to do with the Wii channels, but I've not actually used that myself. So I've got insert SD card on. I don't actually have an SD card, but that was on by default, and it's not shouted at me, so it must be fine. And again, if you are using an SD card, you can specify the folders. There's also some Wiimote settings, some sensor bar. Even though we don't have one, it's all emulated. You can use original hardware if you have it. I have no idea how to get it run the AYN Thor. Possibly something to explore in a later video, but not at the moment. There's also, you can emulate the USB devices for the Skylanders portal. If you remember the little Spyro Skylanders figures you could get, you put on the portal. The Infinity Base, I think, was the Disney version when they ripped that off. And Wii Speak, I think, was it the microphone? I can't remember. If you're more familiar with the Wii than I am, you'll know. retro achievements, again, every video I've done so far where I've covered retro achievements, I have begged and begged and begged everyone to sign up to retro achievements. I love it. So I'm going to enable that. I'm just going to log myself in. So there we are, I'm all logged in. I'm going to enable hardcore mode, and then I'm going to leave it as is. So currently, only the GameCube has retro achievements enabled. Wii support is coming. I believe it's due to launch, I want to say March. But if you subscribe to retro achievements, they have news posts on there where they detail everything. I think they have started rolling out some testers to build the achievements for the Wii games. Again, I'm 80% sure it's March. And then in advanced, so we're going to leave most of these untouched, I think. Yep. So most of the config stuff's very simple. For the graphic settings, so OpenGL and Vulkan, either of those. Personally, I do like to use Vulkan, but it does have some compatibility issues with it. But it can be a bit less performance intensive. Stick with OpenGL. If you notice a game has particular graphical issues, flip it over to Vulkan. You don't want to use software because you're not taking full advantage of the chipset that's inside these devices. The shader compilation, I'm just going to leave it on Specialized, which is the default. You can compile shaders before starting, which I tend to do. Just means that before the game loads, it'll compile the shaders then. So when it comes to need them, they're already there, and it doesn't need it to load them as in, which can have a performance effect. Aspect ratio, I'll leave it on auto. You can force it to 16:9, but some of the games, particularly the old GameCube games, they can look a bit stretched and look a bit odd. Let's have a look at enhancement. So internal resolution, we're going to bump that up to a nice 3 times because it's a 1080p screen. Didn't that? Yep. Oh, I hit 4. I meant 3. You can also enable some anti-aliasing. I've not really noticed any particular issues with anti-aliasing in the games that I've played, but your mileage may vary. The anisotropic filtering, I'm going to enable 16. This is it's like almost an anti-blur. It sharpens up the images. Texture filtering, I'm just going to leave on the default. And most of these, I think I'm also going to enable widescreen hacks. And then, so in the hacks, there's all, with a lot of these emulators, there's some especially one like Dolphin that has been around for years at this point. It's all a case of tinkering, but to get it into a state where you want to just pick up and play your games, this is the easiest way to do it. And then the GPU drive, the default works fine for Dolphin. So now inputs. So for GameCube, I like mirroring it positionally, which can be quite confusing. So we'll use standard controller, and then we'll hit the little settings cog. So the device should detect it automatically as the old controller. And then I'm going to go through. So, like I was saying before, so I'm not going to map the A button to the A button and the B to the B. I'm going to do it on a position basis. My frame of reference for this is when I was a kid, I played a lot of Tony Hawk's games on GameCube. So you get so used to your muscle memory that it's hard to break that habit. Again, it's entirely up to you. So the way I set it up is I set A as B, B as Y. If you remember on the GameCube controller, you've got a little B button here. X I'm going to do as A, and Y I'm going to do as X. Z I do as R1. Start is just start. Control stick is your control stick. That's hard to go wrong with that one. So I did fudge that a little bit, so I'm going to clear it and try it again. That's better. If you do notice that the output text looks a little bit odd, just clear it, just give it another try, especially with the analog sticks, because they are very sensitive and they do register any minor input as an input. And then same for the C stick, which will be the right stick. Triggers, L, R, and then L analog, R analog. If you remember on the GameCube, they had a nice chunky click on the triggers. And then finally, the D-pad. And then we'll tick always connected because the controller will always be connected, unless you've got a hammer or a screwdriver. So now I'm going to try and set up the Wii input. So this is where it can get a little bit finicky. So the way I set up the Wii input might not match how you want to set up the Wii input. It all depends on the types of games you play and your personal preference. So in the settings cog, I'm going to do the... So first I'm going to set the extension as the nunchuck. So you can imagine the nunchuck, which was the left, and then the Wiimote, which is the right. And we'll go back up, and then for the Wiimote buttons, so these I'll just do as A, B as B, 1 I do as Y, 2 I do as X, minus I do as select, plus I do as star, similar to the Switch. Don't use home. And then for the D-pad, D-pad's nice and simple. Hotkeys now, with the Wii remote and its motion controls, obviously some games require you to hold it a certain way. So you can do one of these toggles will do. So I tend to just enable the sideways toggle and then I click in the right stick. What this will do is toggle it between sideways and upright. If you also enable the upright, it should toggle between them. You can also enable hold, but that would require you to hold it, and it just creates an extra issue. So I'm just going to leave them as toggles. There's also motion simulation, so you can try. I've not had much luck with this, but so we're going to use the right stick for motion. And then I want to use the right trigger to recenter. Actually, what I'm going to do, which I've never done before, for recenter, I'm going to click the right stick. And then for the toggles, I'm going to use the right trigger. Oop. And then that should... So it does have a gyro in this, and it does seem to already be sorted. And then for the nunchuck, so C and Z, I can never remember which one they are. So we'll do C as L2, Z as L1, and then the stick we will do as normal. And then for the shakes, so this is registered as a X, Y, and Z button. I just I think you can just shake it, but and then this is where it gets way more complicated. So I don't tend to worry too much about these because the games I play don't use the nunchucks motion, but have a play around. It's also a balance board. Do not stand on the device. So that's basically it. So I will boot up. What can we try? I don't think I have a Tony Hawk's in here after all that. Let's try some old Super Smash Brothers. So again, I'm going to swipe from the side, and then I'm just going to edit layout, and then wait, that's not what I wanted to do. But yeah, none. So on the overlay controls, we'll change that to none. So as you can see there, it was writing the save file to the GCI folder. So it's very simple to get it to this stage. Again, it's all up to you how you choose to set it up. I have not played this game for so long. I am not very good at it. There we go. I win. Oh, I got an achievement as well. How good's that? So I'm just going to back out of that. We'll exit emulation, and then we'll have a go at booting a Wii game. Super Mario Galaxy. We'll do the same. We'll swipe in from here, overlay controls, choose controller, and then just no. So if you did buy the accessories pack, you'll have got the little lanyard that goes into the bottom of the Thor. I've taken mine off because it doesn't fit very well with the grip. So don't launch your AYN Thor across the room. Both A and B. There we go. So as you can see, so this will be emulating the motion controls. So it's very finicky. So Wii Emulation it works and it runs very well. It's just from a controller perspective, it's an absolute nightmare. I didn't even want Yoshi. No offense. So apologies if you're a Wii super fan and you were hoping I could finally crack the case with setting up the controls properly, but the form factors just don't match at all. Have a play around. Again, this is just a basic guide to get them working, but yeah, if this helped, and I can't imagine why it would if you're a Wii fan, then I'd appreciate a like. If you've got any questions, please don't ask me questions about Wii, because that was the generation after me. So I'm not well versed in the Wii, but it runs. So yeah, thank you very much.